Austin, Texas, in the 1880s was a city on the rise. The railroad had brought prosperity, new businesses were opening, and the population was growing with the promise of opportunity. But beneath the glow of oil lamps and the hum of progress, something sinister was stalking the city. Between 1884 and 1885, Austin became the hunting ground of a killer so brutal, so mysterious, that newspapers around the country would later call him the Servant Girl Annihilator. His reign of terror not only shattered the safety of a city, but also left behind one of the earliest cases of serial murder in American history, one that remains unsolved to this day. It began quietly in December of 1884. A young black servant woman named Molly Smith was found dead behind her employer's house. She had been dragged into the backyard and murdered with an axe. Her head bore the blows of the blade, and her body showed signs of assault. At first, people thought it was an isolated crime tragic, but not necessarily unusual in a city where violence wasn't rare. But Austin was about to learn that this was just the beginning. By the spring of 1885, the attacks were ramping up, and they all had these bone-chilling similarities that sent shivers down everyone's spine. The victims, mostly black servant women, targeted at night while they were sleeping peacefully in their beds. It was horrifying to think about dragged outside into dark yards or shadowy alleys, assaulted and butchered with an axe. Some of the victims were nearly decapitated, while others were mutilated in ways that made your stomach turn. The sheer brutality was staggering, and the randomness of the attacks hitting different neighborhoods left no one feeling safe. The city's black community was absolutely gripped by fear, and honestly, can you even imagine what that felt like? It was like a nightmare that just wouldn't end. People started banding together, sleeping in groups, clutching whatever they could find: sticks, knives, anything that could serve as a weapon. It was all about survival, right? Some employers, genuinely worried about their staff's safety, opened their doors wide, inviting them to crash in their own rooms instead of those detached servant quarters. It was such a small act of kindness, but it meant the world during such chaotic times. Yet, despite all these precautions, it felt like nothing could stop the horror. The killer kept striking again and again, leaving everyone on edge and terrified. It was like living in a never-ending nightmare, and you could just feel the tension hanging thick in the air, like a storm about to break. People whispered fears, shared stories, and tried to find comfort in each other, but the dread was always there, lurking just out of sight. By the summer of 1885, the press had given the unknown murderer a name. The Servant Girl Annihilator. It was sensational, morbid, and it captured the imagination of people far beyond Austin. The newspaper spread the story, and soon Austin wasn't just a frontier city, it was the stage for a nightmare that shocked the nation. And then the killer escalated. He no longer confined his violence to servant women. White women of higher social standing became his targets too. In May, a woman named Eliza Shelley was killed in her own home, her skull split with an axe. In August, Rebecca Ramey was attacked. Though she survived, her daughter was killed in the assault. In September, another servant, Gracie Vance, was murdered along with her boyfriend, who had been sleeping beside her. They two were dragged from their beds and slaughtered in the yard. The killer was growing bolder, more ruthless. By the end of 1885, the city was in a state of panic. No one dared walk the streets at night. Families locked themselves inside, but it made no difference. He came for people in their sleep, slipping silently into homes, as if he was always one step ahead of the police. The final murders hit hard on Christmas Eve of 1885, and honestly, they were beyond shocking. Two women lost their lives that night in separate, horrific attacks. Susan Hancock, who was married to a well-respected man in Austin, and Eula Phillips, a young mother with so much ahead of her. Both women were white and came from prominent families, which made the whole thing even more gut-wrenching. They were brutally dragged from their beds, mutilated, and left out in public view for everyone to see. Can you imagine the panic? The entire city was thrown into a state of full-blown hysteria, with fear gripping everyone's hearts. Authorities were in a scramble. The police force, which was already struggling with limited training and resources, arrested dozens of men, black, white, rich, or anyone who even remotely seemed suspicious. But without solid evidence, those arrests crumbled like a house of cards. They offered rewards, formed posses, and even brought in bloodhounds to track the elusive killer, but nothing seemed to work. It was like he was always one step ahead, slipping through their fingers while the city held its breath in terror. The Servant Girl Annihilator really left a mark on Austin, and it's hard to shake off the chilling impact. Imagine living in a city where fear hung in the air, right? Those brutal killings just stopped one day, almost like a ghost story, and the killer vanished without a trace. 8 innocent lives were lost, and yet no one was ever brought to justice. It's wild to think about how many theories popped up, with people speculating about who the monster could be. It's like the city became a character in a horror movie, haunted by the idea that a predator could roam the streets so freely. That lingering fear, it's still there, reminding everyone that sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that remain unsolved. What do you think about that? And then there was this wild theory that had everyone talking. What if the Servant Girl Annihilator didn't he just vanish after his spree in Austin? What if he hopped on a boat and crossed the ocean to London, where he rebranded himself as Jack the Ripper? It's a chilling thought, right? The idea that one of history's most notorious killers could be the same person as another infamous figure just adds another layer of mystery to this already dark tale. What do you think? It sounds impossible, but the timeline intrigued some. The Austin murders stopped in December 1885, and less than 3 years later, Jack the Ripper began his killings in Whitechapel. Both targeted women, both struck at night, both killed with shocking brutality. The connection has never been proven, but the similarity still fuels speculation. The killer's true identity. Totally lost to history, right? But his legend. Oh man, it's alive and kicking. Picture this. A phantom haunting the streets of 19th century Austin. One of America's earliest serial murderers slipping through the cracks of justice. Can you believe it? And here's the kicker, what if he never really stopped? The chilling thought sends shivers down your spine. It's wild to think about how many theories popped up, with folks speculating about who this monster could be. Was it someone you'd pass on the street? Maybe a neighbor? It's like the city itself became a character in a horror movie, haunted by the idea that a predator could roam the streets so freely, watching and waiting. That lingering fear, it's still there, reminding everyone that sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that remain unsolved. What do you think about that? Isn't it haunting to think about how a place can carry such dark secrets? Austin today is this vibrant mix of music, tech, and culture, right? But tucked away in its history is the chilling tale of the Servant Girl Annihilator, a dark chapter that many have forgotten. Imagine strolling through the streets at night, where you might just pass by the very spots where his victims once lived and tragically met their end. In the stillness, with the soft glow of modern street lights, it's almost eerie. You can almost hear the faint echo of footsteps or the unsettling creak of a door swinging open in the dark. Picture it, a flash of an axe glinting ominously before everything falls silent. It's a haunting reminder of a time when fear gripped the city, making you wonder how much of that past still lingers in the shadows today. What do you think? Could those echoes still be felt? The killer's true identity. Totally lost to history, right? But his legend. Oh man, it's alive and kicking. Imagine this, a ghostly figure slipping through the streets of 19th century Austin, one of America's earliest serial murderers, somehow dodging the law at every turn. Can you picture it? The fear he instilled in the community must have been unreal. And here's the kicker, what if he never really stopped? Just think about it. The chilling thought sends shivers down your spine, doesn't it? What if he's still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike again? Wild, right?